That implies that some may not have survived. Pardon me?
I said just 2 this year. You said it implies that some might not have survived.
Just 2.
We
Who
only
were?
lost 2.
Never mind.
I missed that. Okay, Simone, would you like to just introduce yourself and share with people here? Now we're into body electronics work this weekend. Would you share how you got involved in this work and what's happening? Now, by the way, are you with the point holding group, and are you holding a point holding group or?
No, I'm still involved in Anna's point holding
With
group.
Anna Voss?
Yeah, Anna Voss.
Okay, well, you've met
yeah.
Anna, so you know Anna. That's down on the Gold Coast, and so you're working with her.
Yeah.
Okay, would you? I'd just like to share with these folks what's been going on, and give them a little bit of friendly advice as to what to expect.
Expect the unexpected is about the the easiest way to sum that up. Hi. I got involved in body electronics just over a year ago through some health challenges that came up. So I read about it in the Rainbow News and first did body electronics at the Hideaway. Since then, I started when I first did body electronics. I was actually having point holdings 3 times a week, which is fairly full on. And I was very blessed that I had a family that really helped me out, and we did a lot of point holding at home. So consequently, I'm not doing a great deal at the moment. It was very full on up at Genazzano. Heather's laughing up the back there. We were doing like 2 or 3 a day, which is really full on. So I haven't done a great deal since I've been back. I've just kind of been getting used to my environment again, because up there we had cranial work, which is where you're actually working on the head, and everything shifts and everything shifts, like your whole perspective. Yeah, I'm involved in Anna Voss's point holding group down the coast, which is really lovely. We're a lovely group of people, and my health has definitely improved since I've been on the program. I've had some wonderful experiences on the point holding table. I've had a little bit of regeneration for my gluteus maximus. What else would you like me to say, John?
What would you like to say?
Just that body electronics is wonderful, and like probably everyone else that's got up here, really has changed my life, and I think the greatest thing that it teaches you it is self-empowering. You know, John has dedicated his life to giving us the tools that we need to work with, but we're talking about it in the car on the way here, just the levels that you keep hitting of understanding, where you think you understand something, and a few months later you can look back and see it totally different, and just the capacity for learning here is just never ending, and the principles that it's based on, and working with the light as well as the body, and the thing that I really love about it is based on a nutritional program, but John also focuses very strongly on bringing it to the inner, which is really what it's all about, and we can only depend on the program for so much, but it's self-work, and it's being totally honest with yourself and just letting go of any ego or inhibitions and whatever, and to me that's the greatest thing about it. It's really beautiful, and it's teaching you to become one with God, which is really ultimately what I feel that we're all striving for, and that's what I'm receiving from it at the moment, and still working on. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Simone. If people in the middle of the night are having a healing crisis, Simone, how do people get a hold of you?
Now she'll give her mailing address.
My phone number is 073 807 5202. Do you want my address as well?
Whatever.
Yeah. 7 Morphett, MORPHETT Place, Yatala, YATALA, and the postcode's 4207. And you are most welcome to ring me in the middle of the night, that's fine.
Hill, B-R-I.
Now, I think it would be wise to discuss a principle concerning body electronics. And we have had quite a bit of controversy over the many thousands of people who have been trained in body electronics and people who are also have been trained in Reiki. Now, the three of us up here are fully trained in the Reiki technique. Now, what we have is a recognition through experience that many people that are in Reiki do not yet understand, because Reiki, as you all know, is quite a very gentle procedure where the universal life force is, shall we say, channeled through the individual into the person that needs some sort of balancing out, or whether they're tired, they're worn out, they need a little bit of healing. Now, the type of healing that happens varies depending upon the receptiveness of the individual and the clarity of the channel who is practicing the Reiki. Now, those who understand Reiki and have practiced it over the years, they will become more and more of an instrument of service, to be of service to the individual that is being treated. There are some people who are trained in Reiki who are all blocked off because of their resistances or because of their focus on financial return, where they're treating Reiki as a business rather than Reiki as a service for which it was intended. And you've got these people who are blocked off. When they do their Reiki work, they are incapable of shaking free from the influences of the illness of the person they are treating. Now, if a person has resistances within themselves that they have not dealt with, then the person will take on the energies in that area of the person they are treating. And the moment that I have said this to some people who are in Reiki, they get all upset because I would say such a thing. Because they are a channel and the Reiki is a pure energy. Yes, Reiki is a pure energy, but some people are not pure. Their temples are blocked. And until they cleanse their body of all this blocked energy, then the Reiki will not flow through that individual. The Spirit of God cannot be activated in a filthy tabernacle. And we have a lot of Reiki people that I know who smoke a lot and drink a lot, and as a result are incapable of really doing a good job of representing the Reiki organization. Now, in our work, we deal with a lot of healers from all walks of life. The Philippine healers have told us, have told me personally, that the greatest sickness or sick people that they deal with are those people who are trained in Reiki, because they have hands-on with the individual. Now, all of you know who are involved in Reiki, quite a number of you are, you will find out that you hold a spot for maybe 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, then you move on to the next spot, and you are left hanging then with the energy that is not complete within your own body through your own resistances. And because the resistances are still there, you take upon yourself the energy of the person that you are treating. And this is why most Reiki people are quite sick, quite ill. Now, in body electronics, when you hold a point, oftentimes you will work with that point until it is completed. unless the person has not been nutritionally prepared, at which time they go through a cycling, and then the point has to be finished later on after the person returns to a good nutritional program. Many people that you work on will lie to you and will say that they're nutritionally prepared when they might have been last month, but they haven't been on any program the last month or two, and they just are not ready to be worked on until their body is nutritionally prepared. But they think they are. They think that we don't know what we're talking about, when in reality they certainly don't know what they're talking about. Now, this is the important thing I want all of you to understand. If you are not nutritionally prepared, regardless of what your healing modality is, if the person you're working on is not nutritionally prepared, regardless of their illness, you will then be intermingling your energies with that individual, even though you are talking principle, which is putting yourself out there as a clean channel. Remember what I'm telling you, the Philippine healer said the sickest group of people that they have ever worked on are those who would do hands-on work. Number 1, Reiki. Number 2, massage therapists. Number 3, people who do a lot of hands-on work. Where just hands-on a person, you take on that energy of that individual. You hearing me? One of my spiritual teachers told me one time, he says, John, do not put your hands hastily on anyone. Do not put your hands hastily on anyone. You educate the person, you educate the person, you educate the person, and healing is not a physical thing, it's a spiritual thing. And so you teach them spiritual laws, and if they get all upset, then they're not ready to undergo a healing yet. But you teach them spiritual laws that they can then operate from, and then they become well. Now let's say we take a point, and we're working on a heart point, which we'll discuss later. When you're working on a heart point, your finger will heat up, it'll burn, it'll go numb. You'll feel a lot of energy in your hand that might go clear up to your shoulder. You might have pain all the way up to your shoulder, or numbness all the way up to your shoulder. And you're feeling this energy. If you are clear in that area, you will feel virtually nothing. You won't feel the numbness, you won't feel the burning pain, you won't feel anything. And the point will be completed because you're helping to transmute that, because you have already helped to heal yourself. Physician, heal thyself. And you won't feel anything, and the person will go through a very rapid healing crisis. They'll feel everything and re-experience the traumas that they have been involved with in the past, and will release that by lovingly and willingly enduring all things, which is one of the first main laws we have to work with. Now, you hold a point, and your point may burn. Now, if you leave a person in the middle of a healing crisis, then you're hung with that same healing crisis to some degree, because you have taken on the energies and activated that in your own body, indicating that you have had a weakness there. The weakness is already within you. Now, if you can lovingly and willingly endure the energies, the pain, the numbness, sometimes cold, sometimes heat, sometimes tremendous electricity, and if you can lovingly and willingly endure that until everything goes flat, where there's no burning, no numbness, nothing is left there, you feel nothing, your finger has returned to normal. Now, if you're patient enough to do that, then you have transmuted all of the energies that you would normally be taking on from the other person. And so in body electronics, one of the first things we insist on is that you hold a point until it is completed, which may take from an hour to an hour and a half, maybe a little longer. On some people, maybe several days, 8 hours a day. Okay? Now this is a outside possibility for some people. For those who've had extreme electric shock, or their parents have and we've inherited, oftentimes it takes a while to work through that. So the point holder and the point holdee must wait patiently until that thing is completed. You can't hurry these things. A person can't experience things any faster than they're capable of experiencing them. But when it is completed, you are no longer in any way influenced by what's happening, because you have now experienced the trauma the other person has gone through. Now, to illustrate a point, where's Corey? Corey? Will he be back? Okay. Pardon me? Would you get my attention when Corey returns? Corey, would you come up here, please? I'm going to put you heavily on the spot. Yeah. Come up here, please. This is Corey Sievers, in case you don't know. He's a chip off the old block, and if you want to see his who Corey acts like, thinks like, all the mannerisms like his father. Would you stand, please, Trevor? And if you look at Trevor, you'll see Corey at an earlier age.
And we both disagree strongly with what John says. He doesn't want to be like me, and I don't want to be like him.
You ever have that? You ever see that? The last thing a person wants to be told is you act like your dad. It's wonderful. Anyway, from a teaching point of view, I'm going to tell you how it is from my point of view, all right? When I was in India and nearly died there with a virus here about 4 months ago, I nearly expired. Anita nearly expired. We were terribly, terribly ill. We had this new virus over there that destroys red blood cells. And for a period of time, it took everything we had just to go frequently to the loo, where we thought we were losing our toenails. I hope you understand this, but we just were terribly ill, and I don't know if I fully recovered from that yet. I know that Anita has, but it's been a long time coming back. But in the meantime, after having gone through what I will call a near-death experience, something changed within me, and a talent that I had been developing the last year or two is now in full sway. And I'm going to have Corey talk to you about what you can do when you become aware of it and are able to receive energies, which is the yin concept of what we're dealing with. And would you be kind enough to talk about your grandmother on your mother's side and what we did yesterday? I want you to be aware of this, because this is the same thing we do in body electronics, and will help you understand what happens when you're touching a human being or any other object that a human being has worn or worked with. And I want Corey to tell the story.
Okay, I'll start from a little bit further back. First of all, last year at Genazzano Centre, at the instructor's course, I think it was week 1, John showed us this process with Doug's ring. He got Doug's ring, held it in his hand, and he said, I'm going to feel the energies in this. I'm going to see what's been programmed into it through Doug's thought patterns. And the thought patterns were, I've got to keep going, I've got to keep going, I must keep going, I must keep going. And so John would be there with the thing going, I must keep going, I must keep going, I must keep going. And Doug's there going, yep, that's me. Because just before coming to the Genazzano Centre, Doug had a lot of things to sort out, and he just kept saying to himself, I've got to keep going, I've got to keep going. And so I thought, that's interesting, I wonder what's in my bracelet. I've thought, I've worn this for 3 years every day and I haven't taken it off. I thought, one of these days I'll have to get John aside and get him to see what's in there. so another year passed, and I still hadn't got John to have a look at it. Went to the instructor's seminar the second time, this time wearing a necklace that I'd got from my grandmother. And this time, we had a lady up there who was in a wheelchair, and her wedding ring had been given to her by her husband's grandmother. And she developed quite sore throat. She started to feel quite sick. She'd only been wearing the ring about a year, hadn't she? And so she took it off, and then what happened is John ended up testing it and found out all of these incredibly negative thought patterns in that ring, and also John could just held it in his hands and was able to receive the energies, and he felt all of the anger that the lady had gone through, all of the intense emotional resistance to certain things. He felt the throat cancer that she had. He felt the pain in his throat, and he was explaining all of this to us. And I thought, and he was really going through the importance of not wearing other people's jewellery before it's cleared. And I thought, I'm wearing a necklace that my grandmother died in. So I promptly took that off, put it aside. I'd thought about it with regards to my bracelet and the fact that my thought patterns could go in there, but I hadn't thought about wearing someone else's and the fact that I take on their thought patterns.
Say that again clearly.
Okay, after Doug's, I was clearly aware that yes, okay, the jewellery that I wear could take in my thought patterns, and even if I change my thought patterns, I could keep thinking that way due to it being so strongly embedded in the jewellery. But I never actually thought about the fact that someone else's jewellery that I wore, I could take on their thought patterns. And so, consequently, yes, John asked me, did you ever feel a lot of pain in your upper back and neck? Well, my grandmother was pretty lively and got around a bit, but she was like that. And I thought, well, yes, I've had pain in my neck in the past, but I have never had as much pain in my upper thoracic area as I did once I'd put that necklace on.
Excuse me, Corey. I was able to feel the pain like you will feel what the person is going through while you hold their points, if you allow yourselves to be receptive, okay? And I could feel that pain, and I was hurting very badly in my neck, and I could tell you right where the pains were because I was having them in my body from holding this little necklace.
Yeah, so John was going through the word patterns, and the first one that he came up with was the one that I thought, I'm glad I took that necklace off, and that was, I'm not going to last much longer. So that wasn't a good one. That was the first one he picked up, and then he was feeling a lot of pain in his throat, a lot of pain in his chest, and there was the I can't breathe. And one of them that was pain down the arms, and he could feel all the pains in different places. And he was just saying, I'm seeing a little grey-haired old lady. Because I said, look, okay, John, I want you to test this thing, and I'm not going to tell you where it came from. Because I said, I've been wearing it, but I'm not going to tell you where it came from. But it turned out it was one interesting thing, and that was my grandmother, the word pattern that he got out of it was that I'm never going to let anyone know how much I hurt. And it's interesting because I had sort of like a similar one that John felt after that. I can't remember what that exactly was. It was along the similar lines.
Nope, I will never tell anybody how much I hurt.
Yeah. So, I find that interesting because the necklace wasn't given by my grandmother to me, but somehow it found its way to me. Dad tried to claim it, but I claimed it stronger. So, obviously, the patterns there were some sort of an attraction there, so I made sure I had the necklace and I kept wearing it. So, that was interesting. But prior to that, anything more you'd like me to say about that?
Go ahead, sir.
Prior to that, I'd been really interested about this bracelet of mine, thinking, oh, this is going to have some doozies in it, and they're all mine. I'd really thought about that, and I'd been wanting John to have a look at it, see what he felt in there, because I thought I'd have some good ones like Doug, But it didn't work out that way because I'd just decided, I got really interested one day and thought, oh, I'm going to see what I can do with this thing. And I'll just hold it in my hands like you should do with your food, and that just like visualize a violet flame over your food so that it can, so that it makes it good for you. Well, I thought, oh, well, I'll just do that. If the violet flame will consume all human creation, then it'll do that with my bracelet. So I did that, just held it there and visualized it, and just asked that there be no negative patterns in there and there be only positive patterns in there. Although I didn't believe it would work, John seems to think it did. So he said he couldn't find anything, and it's been on me for 3 years, non-stop, so must have somehow worked, I don't know. But the thing is, I really wanted to know what was in there, because it's so close to me. I thought, oh, well, I won't be able to feel my thought patterns because I already know them. So I won't really know what's programmed into that bracelet, but I missed out on finding that out.
There was nothing in the bracelet except, I just love my bracelet. I just love my bracelet.
And Dad said, well, does it have anything in it about the people who gave it to him? Maybe deep down there was supposed to be, I just love my parents. I just love my parents. But at least there were a few left over. I'd only worn the necklace for a couple of months, and there were a few things stuck in there which were interesting.
Actually, when it was given to you, it was started out with the pattern, I will listen to my parents.
I think it was somewhat given to me with the thought of, I should be wearing this bracelet. Dad had been wearing it and trying it on, and he said, oh, well, I want this bracelet. And
the same jeans.
He said, I don't know why I'm giving it to you, but happy 21st.
Same jeans. He was just a little bit more charitable than you were in the matter. Now, let's look at this business, because just like you can take a piece of jewelry that a person owns or something of theirs, and you can experience that fully, what I had to do with Corey's necklace was I was in this real severe pain that I could see the grandmother and see the pain that she was in, real heavy duty. And I had to keep working with that and working with that and working with that and working with that and working with that until it was completely gone. Now you have to do the same thing like in point holding. You feel the pain of the person that you're working on. And a lot of people just freak out when all of a sudden they're having all this pain in their body. But you will feel the pain in your body before the person you're working on feels the pain. For example, for those people who are perceptive, they will see an energy field clear out there 50 feet or more. And as the resistance in the person diminishes, where they're lovingly and willingly enduring the pain, then they're not holding that energy pattern out at arm's length, 50 feet away. But it starts moving in toward the body, 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 until a person maybe 10 feet away from the person on the table will begin feeling this terrible feeling coming through their body. This is the energy pattern of what the other person has been resisting. And so that energy pattern moves in through the body, and eventually, as the person releases that which they have resisted themselves and learn to lovingly and willingly endure all things in the now. Are you hearing my words? This you must learn, or else you take on the energies of the people that you're dealing with. You learn how to lovingly and willingly endure, and as that energy pattern finally moves through you, and you're no longer holding it there in a constant state of creation, as it moves through you and comes into the person who's having their points held on the table, then they experience that. So many times you will see pictures in your mind. You'll have emotions moving through your body. you'll have sensations of pain and so on moving through your body or numbness. Okay? Don't get frustrated about that. Just experience it and continue to re-experience it until it goes. Now, okay, hang on. First of all, you have to learn to be in and receive with non-resistance. Okay? First of all, you have to learn to be in and receive with non-resistance whatever. No restrictions, no exceptions, no qualifications. You take what's there and choose to receive it. Now you'll find that in Book 1 of the Logic and Sequence series. Book 2 and Book 3 is just further amplification of the same. Okay, now, you ready? This is where most people stop who are trained in meditation techniques. They're learning to be in. They're learning to receive without resistance. Now that is the first requirement that a person has to accomplish in their training so that they can receive without resistance. Then, after we receive, we then choose to recreate. And by recreating that which we have received, by, let me use the word intensifying it or making it stronger, the feeling of emotion or the word pattern or the sensory experience, okay? You re-experience that by choice. No resistance involved. Now, if you can't visualize or recreate something in your mind, then you'll never have any control over that. But when you can recreate that which has been resisted, when you understand the laws of recreation and the concept of if you have a sine wave going this way, and you recreate on the oscilloscope a sine wave going the opposite way, what happens to the two sine waves? And neutralizes one another, and what happens? Flat. Now that's the same way in the human body. You learn how to take the energy that is there, you recreate that same energy just like you would in a necklace or a bracelet, just like you would on a person's illness or bruise or calcification, whatever that is, and you recreate that with your mind, where you follow the first principle that we talked about 2 weeks ago, that until we are able to experience on the mental level that which exists on the physical level, we will be bound to the physical. In other words, as long as we resist, we hold what's around us in a constant state of creativity, because that which we resist will persist in our space. You follow this now? Okay, so you receive and recreate. In the Kahuna teachings, they'll tell you this: observe and then participate. Nothing more. Keep it simple. Observe and appropriately participate. Now the same thing is holding here true. You simply receive, recreate, and it goes poof, and it's gone. And you will have all cause, effect, record, and memory gone. Because if you do it right, you'll have a big flash of violet flame moving right up through that, whoosh, and then it's gone. And you might even be asked, what were you thinking about? And you'll say, I don't remember, because it's not there anymore in your space. It has been uncreated totally. And then everything associated with that is gone. Heather, would you come up here, please? Now, Heather has worked for years as a nurse. And I like to illustrate in this situation something that Heather, through experience, understands. Now, some of you were not here when she expressed this about the 4 scars across the abdomen from the 4 operations. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Good. Now, when you received the pain, which is the first step, she could feel the pain, correct? The incision going right across during the operation. But when she recreated that and intensified the pain and used the violet flame, then what happened to the keloid scar tissues that were there across the abdomen?
Well, in the appendicectomy scar, almost completely gone. Probably about, what did I say, about 85, 90% gone. It's just a very fine line there now. And you really have to look to see it.
And before, if I recall you correctly, it was quite a wide keloid scar tissue.
Yes, yes. The way scars remained after following surgery, about 40 years ago, or 40, 50 years ago.
But it went that quick. If that is not uncreation, I don't know what is. Because you're taking the scar tissue and you may ask, in all seriousness, where did the scar tissue go?
Poof.
Poof. And that's what you have to understand, and this is how quickly it will happen. It goes poof by re-experiencing it and letting it go. Is that correct, Heather?
That is correct.
Did you
yes.
see the violet burning through the area?
Yes, I could feel as though I was absolutely encased in a cloud of violet flame, yes,
And
coming up from my feet and from my head.
And I remember you're telling us at the time there at the hideaway how you felt a burning, searing line going right across where the scar tissue was.
Yes.
Burning,
yes.
searing pain.
That's right.
And the violet was there the entire time.
That's right, yes.
Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Anything more you want to add to that? Because I remember standing there saying, now intensify the pain.
Oh yes, I could feel every inch of the way.
Every inch.
Well, it was a fairly large scar. They were in those days. And it's very, very real. You really do just feel it. And I really don't believe the fact that I had a nursing background and I'm very familiar with surgery. I hadn't worked in theatres for, 30 years probably. I had enough of working with surgeons. I never worked with them. But I'm very familiar with the incision of the skin and then going through the fat layer and down at the peritoneum and the fascia and so on and so on. I could go through all of that, and then the picking up of the appendix and clamping and so on and so on. But even so, other memories have come back that I know nothing about. So really, it's not related to knowledge; it's related to memory. And I think just being open to receive. Whatever, yes.
Now let's milk this for all it's worth. If you understand the word milking it, I want you to bring your questions up and you question Heather until you're satisfied that you've got every little essence squeezed out, okay?
I quite often get asked about pain and people saying, I don't want to go back and relive the pain. Sorry, I don't know whether when you go back and re-experience the pain, whether it was actually as intense as it was back then. When you experienced the pain, how intense was it when you felt the incision going across you? Was it unbearable or was it just there? Can you describe how intense that was?
Well, in this instance, John was taking me through a visualisation experience so that I was standing here just like this, okay? But yes, I could feel it, but you control it. And with the violet flame, it's
Without
good.
anesthesia.
Yeah.
Just like it was happening without
Yeah,
anesthesia.
Yeah, Yeah. But then I have re-experienced other surgeries, and yes, it's very real. And for instance, an epidural experience when I was having my spine held at Genazzano. The legs go numb. It is total recreation of the experience. Yeah.
So, John, is that experience to the degree that the person may have not resisted it in the first instance? Like one person may resist the whole experience totally, whereas someone having the same operation may resist it a whole lot less. The pain that they experience would be in tune with how much they resisted it in the first instance. It's like, do you understand what I mean?
Yes. Let me go back here a bit, which we talked about, I believe, in the sclerology class. We talked about re-experiencing where some people are incapable of visualizing the experience because when they close their eyes, they don't see in color, they don't see in form. It took me 8 years of heavy duty work to find my first mental picture where I could see it in color and form. 8 years of concentrated effort. Now, so this doesn't come easy for most people, but back in the 50s, most people were dark in their mind, and I was no different than about 90% of them. Well, maybe 5% could see in color, and those were the architects and the people that were in in color work and so on, where they could visualize perfectly. Then after 8 years, now I can do it. But it was a hard roll. I couldn't believe it until I could see it. And then after I saw it, I realized then what it took to get to that point where you can do it. And that's overcoming your resistances and not hating everything that was coming your way. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
So I'm not done yet. Now, you question everything as you come along here. So what you do is you receive what you can receive. And it'll be a gradient scale of gradually being able to receive more and more until you're able to do what Heather has done, because Heather can visualize in color and form. That's why I called her up to the class, and I remember I told you at that time that of the several people in the room you could see in color and form. Therefore, she could visualize and she would have the results, and I used her as a demonstrating model for the class.
But I didn't know that I could before I went to the first seminar
did.
of body electronics.
Yeah.
Yes.
But remember I told you that you could see, but other people would not understand what you went through because they could not do it. But I want to show that this was possible, and I want to tell all of you that this is possible as you slowly eliminate all of your grudges, all of your hatred, all of your resistances, all of which are tied in not only at a soul level, but also on a genetic level that you've inherited from your parents. We all have a big job to do. Okay? Trudy, did this help?
Yes, thank you.
You've got it. Okay.
I haven't experienced it myself yet. I'm yet to have the joy of that. So.
You did experience during your cranial work, your teeth work.
Okay.
Didn't you have your wisdom tooth pulled?
No, I didn't. I didn't go back and re-experience.
Didn't you
it.
have pain in your jawbone and so on, and numbness in your jawbone with your cranial work? So that is an example.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay? Thank you very much, Heather. Do any of you have questions for Heather? Now, I'm telling you, she is a teacher. She understands by experience. And she's a gem because she's been there. She's done that. No questions? You understand the principle? Okay, Lil.
I have a question about when you're going through things on the table, when you're re-experiencing things, which I have, do you always get the violet flame to actually completely experience it, or can you experience it without the violet flame?
You can experience it in part without the violet flame. But when you eventually are able to experience the duality of yin, yang, totally, where you experience both of them at the same time, which is the concept as taught in Oriental teachings. The yin and the yang isn't separated from one another. They're both together. And when you experience both the receptivity and the creativity simultaneously, flash, there it'll be. It's like what you call encompassing duality. Okay? But then you'll get that flash of violet flame. It'll be absolutely undeniable. But it might take 4 or 5 years to reach that point.
When you have the full body vibration through a point holding, where your whole body is just...
This is called the vibration of regeneration, which is the opposite of the vibration of creation. This is explained in the books. Continue.
I just have to think this question. I've experienced that where I've had my whole body has just been vibrating and burning for a long, long time, but I didn't actually, and going back through memory after memory, all related to the one situation, but I didn't then experience the violet flame. Can you...
You say you didn't?
No.
No, the violet flame will come after you have experienced the vibration of regeneration.
Right.
Because first of all, you go through the burning fire of the Kundalini. That transmutes the emotional body. Then you move into the mental body. And that's when you have the vibration of regeneration, when you begin to encompass duality. If you are linear in your thinking and you think this and then think this and then think this and then think this and then think this, well, you won't experience the violet flame as a result of that. But when you get the both together and you simultaneously experience both yin and yang together, boom, violet flame, flash. And you get all kinds of interesting phenomena at that point, because all cause, all effect, all record and memory are just totally consumed in that moment of encompassment. It just doesn't happen. You have to put forth an effort. A lot of people who are trained to be very, very yin are very, very receptive, and they wait for something to happen, and they wait for something to happen. They have all this phenomena coming into their thinking, okay? But they're not creating it and taking control and the mastery of recreating that which they are receptive. They're sitting back taking it all in, but they're not learning to do anything about it yet. That's when you get the violet flame, when you take full causation of the encompassment of yin and yang. Okay? Now, Anita, you had your hand up for about a half an hour ago.
I don't know where to begin here. But on the question of the pain, and Trudy's question, I would like to say that after I had my root canals extracted with the injections, they gave me about 4 injections to take them out on each tooth. For 2 months, I experienced the pain of the extraction. And I believe that it was as intense as if he would have done it without the Novocaine. But for me, it was easier to experience the pain later without the dentist's hand in my mouth than to actually have that pain right there when he had 50 million instruments and a rubber dam and all that other stuff and the water and all that stuff in my mouth. So for me, the pain was that intense. But because I was committed to experience it, I had no problem with experiencing it. But the fear factor, I don't think it's as hard to experience it as the fear that people have inside of them about thinking about it. When they're actually going through it, you can handle it. And I believe that if you can handle it, then it'll be prolonged, where you'll get portions of it to the place where you can handle it all. When John was talking about the recreation and how we have to feel people's energies during the point holding, this is where the point holder has to be just as committed to the point holding as the person that's holding their points. Now, a lot of times I walk into groups and people are just talking about what they did last Sunday, or, you know, when they went sailing, or when they bought their new car, or blah, blah, blah. And this is where, in the point holding, especially for a lot of people in here who have not held points before, when you first start holding, because it's such a long time, you'll feel that it's such a long time in the beginning, all your desires are going to come up, all your, you know, why do I have to hold so long? Why do I have to be here? You know, I want to take my hand off. I have 500 itches all over my body. I want to itch my nose. I want to itch this. So this is where
I want to go home, and I want to go home now.
So all these crystals are going to come up for you when you first start holding. And this is where the point holder has to be also committed to the session, to be there with unconditional love for the person, so that so that you can experience all these things that the person is going through. Because if you're in gibberish talking to somebody over here, I think you're going to be missing that. And that's where I think some of the energy may start to get stuck within you, because it's not the whole process of everyone looking at what's happening on the table there.
You must understand the power of the human mind. Let me explain something to you, if I may. I mentioned earlier, I'd never finished one comment, that in my experience in India, when life became very fragile for me, I went through hour after hour of all of the things that I wanted to say and didn't, because I was afraid to say the things that I should have said, because of perhaps my own lack of courage, and secondly, perhaps I didn't want people to get upset with me. Okay? But since India, I could care less. That's a strange feeling. I'm just telling you the truth. You do with it what you have to do. But I'm going to let you know how you are going to be handling these things in the future. And when you understand the power of the human mind, you will understand the concept of grace as taught by Jesus. The whole concept here is, when you are sitting next to somebody and you are experiencing their pain, and you recreate that pain and intensify that pain by recreating that which you are receiving, then all of a sudden you will find that the other person's pain is gone. Now, who did it? The other person was sick. They were incapable of concentrating fully. They were just not feeling good and probably asleep part of the time. But then suddenly, when they awaken from their sleep, or when their mind finally becomes clear, they are symptom-free. Now, what does a Reiki teacher do? And let's say that you are sending healing in a Reiki 2, you're sending healing to a person way in the distance somewhere. Now, when you are sensitive, you can focus on that person and feel everything that they're going through, and you're receiving it. And then as you're sending them certain healing energy by certain rites, if I can use that expression that you utilize, and suddenly you will be able to not only feel everything that they're feeling, you'll feel the pain diminish for the person, and you'll know when they're perfectly well. And yet that person may be a world apart. Okay, here's where you have done it for that person. And some of you who are Reiki students will understand that that happens. I think you're a Reiki student all your life because of the energy that you're sending is bringing about a healing in that person, and then you have to understand what's happening within your own body during that time, because you take on that energy. If you have resistance to that energy, then that sickness is recreated within your own body. Underscore that in your mind. That which you resist in the patient you are treating, the resistance that you have toward that condition will be recreated within your own body, and you get sick eventually. Now, as you are doing this, you're doing the same thing with body electronics. You're holding a point, and you're feeling all this pain in your arm, all this pain, burning, searing pain, numbness, and whatnot. So what do? You intensify that and re-experience that consciously, determinedly, as you are receiving without resistance. And as you're doing this, you are not only recreating this for yourself, but when you're tying this in with the other person, you're doing it for them also to a degree. So let's say that you have a genetic back pain, and you go through and re-experience that genetic back pain for yourself. All of your children instantly will be healed of that genetic back pain, and they have done nothing. They have just received because of the morphogenetic resonance that has been created by one person creating the healing energy, which dismisses completely that energy pattern from not only yourself but from all of your DNA. Where's Gabby? Ah, Gabby, come up here, please. Gabby has a story to tell you she hasn't shared with you yet.
I started the course 3 weekends ago.
2.
2 weekends ago. My daughter, who's 11, had dark brown eyes when I started the course. 3 days, that would have been Wednesday, I looked in her eyes and they are now greeny brown through my acceptance of Dr. Ray's teachings. She immediately went into a cleanse for about a day. She was homesick from school for 1 day. The next day my son went into a cleanse. He's been home from school all week. And I believe that they are being healed by sanctification through me and my acceptance of these teachings.
And what's happened to your eyeballs?
Mine are also getting lighter. They were very dark brown and now they're, what colour are they, John? Greeny?
Doug, would you please take a good close look at it? Torch time.
There's, if you look outside the autonomic nerve, inside the autonomic nerve wreath, it's about a medium brown. Outside the autonomic nerve wreath, which would be in her case about the outer 2/3 of the iris, it's a lot more green than brown. There's little traces of brown here and there, but it's essentially a two-tone eye, brown in the middle and green on the outside.
When I began the course, they were dark brown. I've got photos to prove it.
Howard, would the resident skeptic like to come up here, please? You better be skeptical. I want you to see it for yourself, and then you know. Howard viewed this from the beginning. Is that correct, sir?
Even since last week, it's gotten closer and closer to the centre, so she's about 2/3 a greeny colour now. So it's even more than when I saw it at the end of on Tuesday. Very greenish. So it's just the inner ring is now brown.
And that brown on the inside is lighter. The brown in the inside is also lighter since last weekend,
Yeah,
I believe.
a lot lighter, yeah, a lot lighter. Yeah, the inside brown is a lot lighter, and it's nearly all green. So when I checked it last time, there was still a ring about halfway around. Now it's 3/4 of the way across and just light brown in the centre. So by next Sunday, it'll be all green.
Is that real?
Yeah, it is a major change because I saw it in the morning and it moved so much. Last Tuesday we were talking, was it? Yes. And then later in the afternoon, I couldn't see any change, but I can still see change now between then and now.
Where's Walter? Walter, where's Walter? Did you want to see it too? Did you want to look at it? Now this is reality. You can't really tell another person what you see until you see it, experience it for yourself. Then you have sure knowledge. Okay? Now Walter saw it before. What do you see, sir?
Yes, it's a lot lighter especially towards the periphery. And the same on this side too. The inner is brown, the outer is light green. Or lighter green, I should say.
There has been a definite change then from your perspective.
Most definitely. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much, sir.
Can I just add something here? For 23 years, I've had a faith. I've been on a journey and I'm not sure where it's been leading me.
Join the clan.
But on Tuesday during the sclerology class, something John explained to me fell into place, which I've questioned for 15 years. When I was joined to my husband as man and wife, I never understood how they became one flesh. In John's explanation of when a man and a woman join together and at conception, the man's DNA enters the woman's body.
You become a cross.
You become one flesh. The woman hangs on to the man's DNA for the rest of her life. Now that fell into place for me, and that was just a brilliant understanding. I had the knowledge, but the understanding wasn't there. Can I? Oh. I think I need to talk to you about something else.
Go ahead. Later.
After that experience...
Later on that one, okay?
Okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Just don't, that's a private matter, not a public matter.
Actually, no, I was trying to say that I'm
Yeah.
going from joint to joint.
Oh, explain that part, yeah, that's all right.
After I received this understanding, I think that I went into like a small healing crisis, because the next day I started feeling pain that went from one joint to another throughout my body. It didn't make sense to me, but when I thought about it, when John last week asked Eunice whether she had pain going from one joint to another, that's when it fell into place. I thought, the understanding has somehow caused a healing within my body. Would that be right, John?
That's correct. Straight on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Anita, now, are you completed?
No. I just want to go back to the jewelry, because I've had a lot of experiences with jewelry. I really love jewelry, and I guess you can notice because I always wear it. But I had this experience where John and I were invited to dinner to this person's house, and I had on a string of aquamarine beads, which I had gotten in India. And it was a really lovely necklace, and there was a woman at the dinner that was very, very, very ill. And she came up to me, and of course she grabbed the necklace and she started holding it and touching it and going like this and saying how lovely it was and everything. And so I got home that night, and immediately I just walked in the door of our house, and the whole necklace just exploded all over the floor, everywhere. So I tried to put the necklace together 3 times, and 3 times it just exploded. And so finally I gave it to John, and I allowed him to clear it, and he cleared all the word patterns out that this woman had been carrying around with her cancer. She had cancer, and she had been carrying around all these word patterns, and he cleared all of those. And then we put the necklace together again, and it stayed together. But this is, I just want to bring this up to show you how not only your word patterns, but another person's word patterns can go into your jewelry. I mean, I'm not saying don't let people touch you or anything like that. I mean,
Don't say that.
I mean, sometimes I do stand back, like if I see a person going for some of my jewelry. I lost 2 bracelets at Genazzano because 2 women asked me if they could see them, and I felt bad about saying no, so I let them, and they immediately broke within an hour of touching them. So people's word patterns also can go into your jewelry, and that's why I think you have to be careful about who you allow to touch your jewelry, or the other thing is to clear it if you can before it breaks.
The lady with cancer, the word pattern was, everything's falling apart. Everything's falling apart. And the emotion was with it, and just by touching this, there's like a discharge of energy. You ever walk across a carpet and hit something metal and go zap, you feel the discharge of energy? The same thing happens with the emotions and feelings that will discharge from one person to another, and a person will feel terrible. Some of you who are Reiki, you'll understand through your practice that sometimes somebody will just touch you, and you'll feel all of your energy just drained from your body immediately. And you have what they call psychic vampires. I call them psychic vampires, where they just come into your presence and just touch you, and all of a sudden you're just drained, and they feel wonderful. They go on their way, but you'll just feel drained on this. And just recognize that this is happening because of the energy interchanging with the people you're working with. Okay. Done? Doug? No. Hang on, Trudy.
This is actually an answer to your earlier question, Trudy, so almost as good. Trudy asked about the intensity of the pain and how real it was in Heather's experience, and I wanted to make a couple of points there. The very fact that we're re-experiencing pain in the first place, in other words, the very fact that it's coming back out of the body clearly indicates that it was suppressed to some degree the first time through. In other words, if we had completely and fully experienced it the first time through, then there wouldn't be anything to re-experience now, because we wouldn't be carrying it with us anymore. Now, that's not to criticize anybody. We've all suppressed stuff, and obviously if we had a surgery under anesthesia, we can't possibly have experienced it when it first happened. So the simple answer to Trudy's question is, does it hurt as much as when it originally happened? I would say hopefully it hurts more, because that's kind of the point of the whole experience, is that you're getting a more intense level of the pain out than you experienced initially. In the event of a general anesthesia, you essentially didn't experience any of the pain at the time. So, of course it's going to be more intense. But I would say even with something that was not under any anesthesia, in going back through it, if you're really going to get the thing fully, the pain would actually be more intense than it was when the event actually happened, if you can get to that level. But there's another point I want to make here, which is, the question, how real is the pain? And I would like to make the point that we're looking at it on the one hand, we're saying, well, say there was, this much pain, 100 units of pain that were there, and, because we were resisting it, we only got through 20 or whatever, and then we go back through point holding, and we get through 30, 40, 50, 80, whatever, and we eventually get up to 100. I'd like to make the point that you can actually go beyond that to where you could say that ultimately in answer to the question, how real is the pain, it's really only as real as we make it. Now, Heather had an experience of some type of, say, a scalpel or some type of implement slicing through her abdomen to, you know, take out her appendix. There's a reality to that experience. I mean, she was sliced open. But as to the pain itself, what is the reality of that pain ultimately, other than our own response to that experience? In other words, we qualify the very experience itself. And I mean, I'm just saying ultimately the pain isn't there because of the scalpel. The pain is there because of us. In other words, it's our own response to that experience. It's our own interpretation of the experience. And it is possible, and this is what Heather has done, at least in part there, to get to the point, because I noticed when Trudy asked the question that Heather said when she was going back through it that it really wasn't that bad. So what Heather had really done is she'd gotten to the point where she could feel the reality of the experience. In other words, she could feel the scalpel slicing through her abdomen and into some of her inner bits there, and she could experience the reality of the experience, and yet by getting to the point where she's no longer resisting it, it isn't the same sort of pain that it would have once been. In other words, you could experience the moment itself of the scalpel, and after a certain point, particularly as the violet flame is present, you're getting to the point where your own qualification of the experience is being stripped away to where you can get at the essence of the experience itself. Would you agree with that, Heather?
I think, Doug, that you were not there at the time, were you? Okay, I was. The pain was so severe in Heather that if you remember, Heather, you nearly collapsed and we had to hold you up for a while the pain was absolutely, I'll use the word unbearable. Do you remember that? And you had quite a bit of sweat on the forehead trying to get yourself under control again, to stand still with no point holding, mind you, just experiencing it using love, light, and perfection principles. But the thing is as the scalpel was moving through there, it was like the scalpel was moving through there without any anesthetic whatsoever. Now, in line with that, have any of you ever bumped your head at one particular point, and then next week you bump your head in the same doggone point, the following week you bump it again on the same spot? It's not an inch off that, it's right on the same spot you bumped it before. How many have done that? I think we have a goodly number of people here that can recall hurting themselves. If it's not the bumping the head, it's bumping the crazy bone, or it's bumping the leg in a certain spot over and over and over again. And some of us haven't learned our lesson yet because we keep doing the same thing. So consequently, that which we resist, we continue to create that same experience over and over again. One gentleman threw a thought at me one time that literally gave me an understanding that I didn't have. And we were wondering, why is it so many of us have the silver amalgam fillings in our teeth? Why is it so many of us are having the air polluted with lead? Now, if you take a look at the past, mercury in its elemental form was used as a common painkiller and cure-all for just about everything, from cuts on the leg like with mercurochrome and with methylate or any type of a mercury compound. And so over the centuries of time, genetically we have within us a resistance toward that which is associated with mercury or lead. And so we bring ourselves into situations where we get lead poisoning or where we get mercury poisoning, and one of the best ways is through the silver amalgam fillings in our teeth, which is 50% mercury. And so, with all due respect, if we have anesthetic, it's not necessarily a new experience. but an experience that we're probably recreating from times past when we have resisted this so more, just like bumps on the head, which happen in this life, but over a period of time we keep making the same mistake over and over again because the resistance in our life is perpetuated. That's why some things happen in this life. We wonder, why does it have to happen to us? It's because it's in the genes, or it's because we, on a soul level, we are recreating that which at one time we've resisted. Now this is heavy duty if you stop and think about it. It's heavy duty. And we bring upon ourselves the very thing we have resisted the most. And if we cannot experience these things on the mental level, then we'll have to re-experience them on the physical level. Because that which we resist is still being perpetuated in our life. So things go beyond this life. And something that we think is new to us may be brought about by resistance from a prior time. So please keep that in mind. Doug, continue on, sir.
We're starting out now in a place where we've all resisted physical pain and other pain a tremendous amount. So as we go back through it and unlock a lot of this, it's going to get increasingly more intense because you're going back through stuff that you've refused to experience in the past, probably many times over in the past. And so you will definitely get to a point, you know, going back to Trudy's original question, where as you're re-experiencing it, it will get completely unbearable. It will be completely beyond what you would have even imagined you could have experienced. What I'm suggesting is that there's also a step beyond that where you can experience the event in its full intensity, but you're no longer resisting it, and you're then able to experience pain as the Maharishi taught, where it's simply an energy flow, because there's no resistance in you anymore to the intensity of the experience.
This is when you move from pain on the scale of emotionality up to enthusiasm. And this is where you begin to move into the encompassment of duality and get into the regeneration aspect, which will be indicated by the vibration of regeneration. Now this has to come. Now, please do not get the idea that once you have experienced the fire of the Kundalini or the burning of the fire of the Kundalini or the vibration of regeneration, that you have made it. There may be over 10,000 areas in your life that you need to deal with, and you may have made it in only one area. But you still have other areas that you haven't dealt with. When you haven't arrived. I know of people firsthand that think they know it all. And when they take the position that they think they know it all, that is one of the most dangerous positions you can take. Because basically, we're just at the bottom of the ladder, all of us beginning to learn in the eternal scheme of things. Now, some people think they're so clear that they can go in and take a look at a person and diagnose them properly, and and then treat them properly. But if you line up 10 different people, each with the same claim, you'll find that every one of them will diagnose differently and treat differently. And this is a very dangerous position, to think that you can judge on spiritual evidence alone just by feelings, because I'll guarantee all of us, there's not one exception in this room, all of us are blocked somewhere in our emotionality, and that is going to block our ability to see clearly. We will not be able to discern until, okay, let me state that again. We will not be able to discern in any given area until we can remove the emotional blockages which cause us to react. Because otherwise we are governed by reactions, because we cannot remember the source of our reactions, which hinder our ability to visualize properly. And as long as our visualization is blocked, at best we only are able to see to the degree that we have unblocked ourselves, where we become very loving, very kind, very gentle, we think, when actually our body is literally full of dead man's bones. When I say dead man's bones, I mean just that. The resistances of the past will pull in the entities of the present, and it's all in the ever-present now, and we think we're clear when actually we're far from it. Now, the truth of the matter is the more clear we are, the less clear we think we are, because we recognize then how far we have to go. Now, please understand this. Let's take a book. You read the book, and somebody asks you, do you understand that book? Oh yes, I understand everything about it. I read it. The truth of the matter is you haven't understood the book, because you go back and read that 7 different times over a period of maybe 7 years. And it's like you've never read it before each time you read it. Now, be careful, my friends, because we have people in body electronics that have gone off half-cocked, thinking that they know, and they just absolutely don't know what they're doing. And yet they think they know, but they have no knowledge of body electronics, yet they put themselves out there as experts, having never really studied it, having never ever really had the work done on themselves with point holding, and yet they think they know because they've done it intellectually. And I say to that, absolutely nonsense. Body electronics is an experiential thing and not just an intellectual manipulation of the mind. I think I've covered a few questions that some of you have given me that I hope you can read between the lines on that, because there are a lot of people who think they know and they don't know. It's a process that we need to understand principles, and even though we can apply principles in part, the application of those principles go far beyond. I'm not going to reveal to you this, but one gentleman is able to, I can't talk about this, okay? But I'll just say this, teleportation is real. Manifestation at will is real, and it's here today among certain people that are very quietly going about their business. Being able to dematerialize and rematerialize their body in a different form, fully conscious, is real, and it's here today, and it's not going through the astral realm, it's not going through any other means. The powers and majesty of manifestation, like Sai Baba is able to manifest. He's only one man of maybe 400 that exists just in India alone that's capable of doing what he's doing. He's just one man, but he's doing it openly. Other people do it very quietly and continue on their pathway to the ascension. But the thing is, the more secrets you keep, the more secrets you keep, the more will be given to you in the future. But if you give away your secrets, okay, about the things that you're learning and the phenomena that take place through body electronics, the more that you give it away, the less you will receive from the eternal heavens. So just keep that in mind, okay, because we're getting into serious business when we get into body electronics, because more than ever before, things are opening up for people to where just in no time at all, they're standing on the threshold of power that their mind is able to manifest, and they have no idea what to do with it because there's nobody there to teach them. Okay? Now, Doug, go ahead, sir.
Trudy?
Go back and get it. In the meantime, I've got something to say. A lot of you are having these things happening, spontaneous, which you don't understand. How many of you are getting pain in the body that you've never had before, where it's bouncing around inside the body, and you're getting extreme heat and extreme cold? May I see a show of hands? Okay. It used not to be this so, but there's about 12 hands up on that, all right, in this little group. Now, many people would think, well, they're going insane because all of a sudden their body's ice cold or their body's vibrating. How many of you at night, while you're laying there in the bed just feeling your body, how many of you are going through a very gentle vibration through the tissues? Raise your hands high. Keep them high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 people. That's heavy duty. That's vibration at the cellular level. The body is slowly regenerating just by whatever principles you are applying. People who used to go to the doctor and tell them what's going on, they refer you to the psychiatrist for this because you're a little bit off. But this is happening all over. And it's happening at accelerating rate because we used to not have that. Now, you're all aware of the comet coming up here, this Japanese named comet. Every time there is a comet in the system, it increases the vibration rate of things that are going on. You have behind this comet, which is very powerful comet, you have one 10 times larger than Halley's comet. Some people say larger. And that'll be here in March of next year. 1 year before and 1 year after, these influences of this comet from an astrological point of view are felt. But now you have the combination of two comets, which are going to be tearing at your very heartstrings. Every little crystal in your body, every single crystal is going to get triggered, and you're going to go through reactive modes that you didn't know you had. Don't panic. Sit back, control the body, hold the body still, and this too shall pass. And then something else will come up for you to deal with. But we're into a time when we must discipline ourselves to lovingly and willingly endure like we've never done before. Because our very crystals in our body are not going to be triggered over a period of a year or two, slowly, methodically. It's going to be like we're going from one explosion to another explosion internally, and if we perpetuate the resistance, we go down. If we love the opportunity that's provided for us to experience, then we move from one level up to another level, up to another level. As it was explained to me, this is one of the greatest opportunity that we have ever had confronting us in our time. This is one of the greatest opportunities because this comet business is going to have such an influence over our lives from the influences of the planetary influences triggering with the energies of the comets. Every crystal in our body will go into a reactive mode. Every crystal. And will have every single chance to get upset. Now, for whatever reason, people from at the beginning of this year, from roughly January on, have been having tremendous problems of one type or another, triggering them in their area of greatest vulnerability. Upsetting families, upsetting relationships, upsetting personal goals and desires, and everyone is just being shredded emotionally. Has anybody felt that in this room personally, where everything just seems to be turned upside down and backwards? Raise your hands if you're being affected personally. Isn't this fun? There never has been a chance for mankind, as far as stellar influences are concerned, than what's happening right now. So as far as body electronics is concerned, that's going to be minimal right now. But what I want to show you is, if I can, is to school yourself deliberately with commitment and intent to lovingly and willingly endure everything, and know that whatever you're expecting to happen won't happen, and everything that you don't expect to happen will be happening. And just sit back and enjoy the ride. You're a cork on the wave now. And you're just a cork. Enjoy the journey, all right? Just sit back and enjoy it. There's nothing you can do about it because all these things will be happening in your life. And if you try to control it, you're going to, you're not going to be able to. It's that simple. Okay? Just enjoy. But I think we had about 90% of the people, 95% of the people out here with their hands up on that one. I'm glad I'm the only one that nothing's happening to. And those of you who know me can just say tongue in cheek. All right? Mark it down. July is the month when all hell will break loose in everybody's life. That's when the two comets will have their greatest energy combined in conflict with each other, and you're just going to be ripped to shreds emotionally. So just enjoy. All right? Pardon me? This July. This is just about the end of March. April, May, June, and then all hell breaks loose in July. It'll break loose before then, but July is going to be where it really comes apart for everybody on the earth, and then it's going to continue for at least for another 2 years after that. Because we still have to have the full energy of that big comet coming in, the Hale-Bopp comet, and then we have a year after that before it begins to diminish. There's a comet now. It's a fast one, a tremendous energy involved. It's really a fast mover, and it's just going through the different stars, and everyone is just kind of upset. And as soon as one upset is over, the next upset is there. Have you been finding that out for you? Say it again. Speak up, please, for us.
This has been an absolutely amazing year. I work in special needs in the high school. Barely a day goes by without we have a child in almost suicidal or really on the edge, just blowing up, and some of the staff are the same. It's been quite incredible.
Just sit back and enjoy. I can think of Genazzano next January, right in the heat of the of the situation. And I hope we all survive, those who are going. Some of you have said, I've got to be there, I've got to be there. I don't know if I want to be there. But I think we're going to have some interesting times. Now, Doug, anything more, sir? Hey?
Not in that particular area.
Okay, what area do you want to bring up?
Well, just one thing that I've seen come up in a few people here this morning. I think it's an important principle to kind of get out where everybody can look at it right from the start. There's a principle it's a very, very simple one, really. And I believe John's mentioned this a couple of times earlier, but it's worth covering again. We will never receive a blessing that we're not willing for everyone else to receive first. We will never receive a blessing that we're not willing for everyone else to receive first. And kind of another aspect of that principle really is that we'll never receive a blessing that we're not willing to give to everyone else. And if you look at the practice of body electronics, it's really based on that principle. John was talking about earlier at the beginning about how there is he was talking about how a lot of the people that do hands-on type of work get very, very sick themselves. And this has certainly been my experience and my observation. So on the one hand, you have this idea that it can be somewhat hazardous to your health to be working directly with people and holding on people, whether it's massage work or any type of hands-on work. And I think that's a very, very important principle to understand, because a lot of people get involved in body electronics and they really burn themselves out. They're holding points 2-3 times a day. I mean, I don't mean at an instructor seminar where you're obviously going to be working at a different pace than you would in normal life, but I'm talking like once people leave a seminar, there's people that have gotten out there where they're just holding points on everybody. I mean, they're holding points like 10, 12 times a week, week after week, month after month. And, oh yeah, I've definitely done it, and I can assure you that it definitely wears you out after a while. It's a very, it takes a lot out of you to be constantly working on others. So on the one hand, I would encourage all of you to avoid excess in that area. Work within your point holding groups and take turns. Make sure everybody gets on the table. And definitely don't burn yourself out. Yet on the other hand, look at this principle. We'll never receive a blessing that we're not willing to give to everyone else. And it's been my experience that people that want their points held but aren't willing to hold points on other people don't get better, no matter how much point holding they get. I mean, they can get held 4 or 5 times a week, but it's very, very important that people get into the flow of things where they're both giving and receiving, because that's the life principle.
I don't see you taking notes down. This is a solid, basic concept that we must really not only learn about, but think about, because it applies to us. Doug, would you please go back and emphasize that once again?
On the one hand, very definitely don't be foolish and expect that that your own health is going to be perfect if you're out there holding points 10 or 15 times a week all year. I mean, I'm definitely telling you to be moderate in this, and as John has said, don't work on people unless you're really led to do so. I mean, in other words, be sensible about it, take turns within the group, make sure everyone's taken care of, including yourself. So I'm saying avoid the one extreme of overdoing it, but also make sure you understand that this concept that we can't receive a blessing that we're not willing for everyone else to receive, and we can't receive a blessing that we're not willing to give to everyone else. And one of the things that I've seen is people that are very, very concerned about getting their own points held, but they're not willing to hold points on other people. And it's been my observation that people like that don't really get a whole lot of benefit from body electronics. There are exceptions, because it's not simply the act of holding points on other people, it's the willingness to do so. And so there are some exceptions, because there are some people who are very, very ill, who are getting their own points held a tremendous amount, and maybe not holding points much. They're getting good results, but if you look very, very carefully at those people, you'll find that at least in their own mind, they would be very, very, very willing to be holding points on other people. So recognize that there is a little bit of an exception here. It's not just that you're doing it, it's much more important that you're willing to do it. I might add, there's people that are holding points on other people, even though they're actually doing it, their heart's not in it. In other words, they'll go through the motions of working on other people, but they won't put themselves out. They won't really sacrifice much of themselves. They're just kind of going through the motions so they can get their turn on the table. And that's just about as bad as just not even bothering to hold points on anybody else.
I remember, I'm just laughing here to myself about a circumstance that Anita and I were in. We were invited to stay at a friend's home who are multi-millionaires, and they really were good to us, no question about it. Because they were spending, because they choose to spend, and we went out to dinner, beautiful experiences, no problem. And the things that they chose to spend money on, they were very free and easy with the money that they chose to spend. Now, case in point, this one lady has total control of all of her money. She has a whole strain of lawyers out there protecting her and how the money is spent and how it's invested and so on. The daughter-in-law comes over from a prior marriage and says, listen, I'm really in a bind. Can I borrow $100? Now, this lady will go out and spend $100 at that's nothing to her. But she loaned this daughter-in-law $100. The next week, she was throwing a fit because the $100 was not paid back, that the girl could not pay back. I hope you're hearing me. And where she could have been generous and allowed this $100 at the time when this gal was in a real terrible bind, Just let it go for a while. She couldn't let it go. She was as stingy as a person could ever be on loaning money to people because they had to pay it back now, you know. And the chaos that reigned around that $100 that was loaned out was unbelievable. Remember all that? Just chaos. And I thought to myself, when she said, John, I want very much to be able to help you in any way we can financially in certain things regarding body electronics. I thought to myself, that's the last person on earth I would ever accept monetary help from. Because with the helping the way she would help it, it would be a loan and then control. And she had done that with some other people. And it just made life miserable for those people because she put the money out expecting a return from it. She didn't get the return as fast as she wanted it, and hell went. And I thought to myself, that's the type of person who cannot handle money themselves because they put strings on everything and have expectations of some sort that they hang on you that you don't know about. So don't go out here and borrow the money from those people who can't handle money properly to begin with. Keep that in mind, because they cannot give a blessing without strings attached. You see what I'm saying? And yet they feel that they're very generous in wanting to help out as long as it's helped out their way. You see what I'm saying? Take a look at what people are doing and be very, very careful who you enter into any business with those people. This is what Anita and I learned, and we almost let them help us. But because of their track record on how they handle money, that's the last person we'd ever want to get involved in. You with me on that? This is what you have to look at, folks. These people want to bless other people, and they say how much they want to help people until they say, well, let these people who are starving, that's their karmic position in life, they have to starve. That's not so, folks. But that their feeling is they have worked hard for their money, and they're the only one that has done it all. Nobody has ever helped them. They've done it all themselves. Except they forget that where the money came from was from the inheritance of a huge fortune from their ancestors. And yet they think that they're the ones that did it all. No man is an island. And any one of us, if we stop and look, there's people behind the scenes that have paved the way for us to be where we are today. And one of the greatest sins is the sin of ingratitude. One of the greatest sins that I know of is a sin of ingratitude. All of us are guilty of this in one way or another because we think that we stand alone and we've done it all ourselves. And we haven't. Every human being has the right to be treated with the same degree of dignity and respect as we ourselves would like to be treated. And until people can learn to be one in their economic affairs, they can never become one in their spiritual affairs. So you take a good close look and see how people are handling money, and you'll see how their spiritual development is. I hate to bring it down to money, but that's one of the best ways you can find out where people are progressing or not. And they might stand up here in front of you and speak out all these beautiful, eloquent terms. But how are they handling their life? Are they putting order in their household? Is their household clean? Do they wash their dishes after a meal? Do they wear clean clothes? Do they feed their dog and cats? Unfortunately, do they overfeed their dog and cats? You can look at it, excess as well as deficiencies. And so what Doug has said is absolutely correct, that until we're willing to let other people have their blessings first before ourselves, Remember, other people may not be able to receive a blessing. That doesn't mean you have to wait until they come to that point where they can receive a blessing. But you're willing for other people to have that blessing. You follow what I'm saying? But people who have no compassion, and they feel, well, it's karma that that person has to go through all this, and they don't even bother to lift a helping hand. I see people who are multi-billionaires, and they would just say, as they walk by starving people along the street, bless you, bless you, bless you. And yet they won't do one thing of their own personal fortune to help them, to help relieve the pain that people are going through. With all due respect, this is Australia. You find the people who do the least are those who have the most accumulated wealth. Look at the Queen of England. But every charity that she belongs to is a tax write-off. And they're looking at it from a monetary point of view as what is to their advantage to give charity here or charity there. It's all calculated. But the heart, if you study their hearts carefully, their heart is a rock, because they have no charity for the thousands and thousands of municipalities under their dominion that give them credit, you know, for being the queen. Hail the queen. Nonsense. All that money is opium money that came down from getting people, destroying people's lives and families. That's how the royalty got their money. Oh, I hope I don't have any Queen supporters here. But, pardon me, sir? Okay, that's all right, but look at the history. Go back through the history of going back 3 or 4 generations. It's chaotic. But take a look at the good that other people have done where they've given everything they have in the service of mankind. Please consider that. During the time that I did a lot of study one time looking into different things, I was trained, which I rejected every bit of this training, but I was trained by a trained witch who was the son of the witch to the Queen of England. And I said, hey, no way. And he's told me what the mother was doing, what she had been doing, and how she could bring about every single manifestation she wanted. And then he started showing the powers that he had through incantations, through manipulating the external environment. Are you aware statistically 1 out of 100 people are into witches' coven here in Australia? How many are aware of that? Okay, many people in high positions are in this situation. I would have scoffed at that at one time, but until I got involved with people who were in the United States who were involved in these things in very high places. But I wouldn't have believed that some of the people in the highest positions in the world have their own organizations which are involved in the black mass, which are involved in the firm belief that the teachings pertaining to God are equal to the teachings of Lucifer. That bothered me greatly. There was an organization in the United States that was affiliated with some European organizations, which goes back into the Grand Orient Masonry. Now, my father was a 32nd degree Mason. My brothers were 32nd degree Masons. I was a Blue Lodge Mason. And I said, that's absolute nonsense. Until in this one long extended meeting in this one monastery up in the northern part of the United States, 2 friends of mine, they were patients of mine who were plumbers, were called in to unplug the sewage system of this monastery that they were in, where nobody was allowed entrance unless you were a member of this particular organization. They said when they got down there, they had to dig the whole thing up, and they found thousands of fresh baby bones, human baby bones. Are you aware of the number of children that end up missing in the United States every year? The number of children that end up missing in Australia? There are statistics where these children just disappear off the face of the earth and nobody sees them again. It's not just Australia, it's all over Europe. Folks, we have things going on here that we're totally unavoidably, we don't see them because they don't exist to the outside world. And this rises right up to the very heights of politics in our world today. And if you're not on the inside, you don't get the stamp of approval to become different positions in government. Now, a few people, through their own empowerment, so to speak, slip through the net, but they do everything they can to get these people out of it. And I often, when I became aware of this, it scared the liver right out of me. Until you meet these people and talk to them and talk to how they have been visited in the middle of the night by maybe 7 men and said, either you join up with the syndicate or join up with the conglomerate, a person who's been successful in business, you've got so big now, we'll either have to destroy you or you join with us. And told him what the game plans were. And the man said, to me personally, he said, I had to join or I die. And you look at the game plan worldwide, and we're just little small potatoes. We really are. And I just take my finger off my brow when you meet with the families of these people who are aware of this sort of thing. And they're scared spitless too, because if they reveal what they are involved in or what their families are involved in, they die. All of this has to be turned around, my friends. I don't know quite how to do it except take one person at a time, clear out their resistances, and morphogenetically everyone that they're tied into will be helped. That's the only way that I know how to do it, because you can't do it directly one-on-one, but you can do it through families, you can do it through friends, and morphogenetically that tide will change. This is what in body electronics each of us are involved in. Have any of you talked with people who were involved in the black mass and finally were able to escape it? I have. We had people at Genazzano last year that had been involved in these things. And all these things came to light as to a number of things that had left an effect upon these people that were just absolutely terrible. And then one story comes out, then another story comes out, and they start fitting together concerning certain people in high places. It's a little scary, folks. And you wonder, how can a world like this ever survive with the wickedness that is engulfing it? That's my thinking on it. A lot of people say, well, John, you're exaggerating all this business. I'm sorry, I'm not. I could tell you much more about it that I personally am aware of. But we have to go and take very careful look at ourselves and make sure that our skirts are entirely clean, that we might be able to be of true service to one another. Because you can't go out here and force another person to change. A person forced against their will is of the same opinion still. So you want to get involved in body electronics? You're going to work with some people that have had the most heinous experiences thrust upon them that you can possibly imagine, that are involving high court judges, involving the police chiefs, the mayors of the town, etc. And you begin wondering, how in the world can this go on in a free society among so-called normal people? Now, I said what I said, just I'd like to see a show of hands. Are any of you aware of all of this happening? About 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have just a few people aware of all this. And it goes deeper than you think, folks. It goes to the highest places where the highest plaudits are given some of the greatest royalty on earth. Now, Doug, do you want to say something, sir? Now, I have to say this because if I were to die tomorrow, I will have resented not saying it. Okay? That's the way it is.
One of the opportunities that you'll all have in body electronics from time to time is the opportunity to see somebody else have something fairly fantastic happen to them. For example, when Heather had her scar tissue disappear at a seminar, there were probably a lot of people watching that, I'd imagine, probably 100 or so. And one of the reasons I say this is a marvelous opportunity for each one of you is it gives you a very, very, very good chance to see how you are applying this principle of being willing for everyone else to receive the blessings. In other words, look at that principle that we'll never receive a blessing unless we're perfectly willing for everyone else to receive that blessing first. And so if you see something happen, like for example, if something happens sometime over the course of this weekend where somebody or another has something marvelous happen to them, I'd encourage you to do a couple of things here. On the one hand, pay very close attention to what that person's going through, because that's a good teaching experience for you. That's something that you can be out there telling people. It's not a story, it's something you saw happen with your own eyes. But just as importantly, take the opportunity to look at yourself. Take the opportunity to be very honest with your own feelings. You know, it's not anybody else's business what you're feeling, but I'm saying, look, you don't need to come up and tell us, but I'm just saying, look within your own heart, and as you see somebody else healing, see if you have any envy. See if you have any jealousy. See if there's the least little bit of you that's wishing it was you up there instead of that person. Because I can guarantee you that as long as those feelings are there in any of us, that's going to keep us from healing ourselves. That's going to keep us last in line, let's put it that way. So I don't say that to be critical of anybody here, because I believe that all of us probably either have that or have had that pattern within us somewhere. But what I am suggesting is that you're going to have a marvelous opportunity somewhere along the line to uncover that pattern in yourself if it's not obvious to you already. So just take that for what it's worth, and look at yourself very, very carefully and see what you find there, because I think some of you may be a little bit surprised from time to time.
Another principle that I'd like to bring up as you start to point hold is the fact that you are not healing the person on the table. You are there for them, but you are not healing them. Now, I did a lot of psychic work about several years ago, and I used to go into energies and auras and manipulate this and change that for the person, and the person would come out of the healing and they would say to me, "Anita, I feel terrific. My whole life has changed now. This is cleared up, that has cleared up." And when I was doing this, I didn't understand at the time how much of the karma of the other person I was taking on my own body. So when I was initiated into the light and sound current by Thatkar Singh, he said to me at that time to give up all psychic work. And I did. From that day forward, I have never done any psychic work. And he said that if you continue, that your whole body would just be all gnarled up from all the karma that you would take on. So from that day forward, I have never done any psychic work anymore. But also, a lot of times when you first start to hold points, a person starts to feel like they want to heal the person or help them through with what they're going through, and they want to tell the person, they want to say, oh, I see this. Okay, in that memory, I see that you have to do this or you have to do that. Allow the person to unfold. It's their lesson. Allow them to unfold at their own pace, at their own time. Maybe in that session they won't be able to see what you can see. You're stepping away from it, so it's easier to look on it. Give them the space and time to work through their word pattern, to work through what they have to work through, to get to the lesson that they have to get to. It may be something very obvious to you, and you just want to tell them, and you just want to just step right in and just tell them, can't you see this? But allow them, just step back, allow them to have their space to see it on their own time.
One of the difficult things we have is attitude. One of my students that I trained carefully from about 1980, we had a difference of opinion, and that difference of opinion went into a huge breach on his part. Because that he wanted to develop the ability within him where he could just point at a person and say, be healed. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to be a healer, where all he had to do was look at them or touch them and they'd be healed instantly. The problem is he wanted that power to himself and not acknowledge that it's necessary for each of and every one of us to exchange our own consciousness, that we might heal ourselves rather than be healed by an outside source. Granted, you can use energy medicine of many different kinds, and you can manipulate the energy around the body so the person will be symptom-free temporarily. But if they haven't changed their consciousness and changed it by the exertion of their own thinking, then every single condition will come back upon them sooner or later. Why have a homeopathic remedy to reduce all symptoms to where the person is perfectly balanced out? And if there's no change of consciousness, you have to continue to use that same homeopathic remedy to balance out the symptomology. The same thing will be true with acupuncture. Because if you don't change your consciousness, then you'll still have to balance up the same areas, because what you manipulate and change, like in acupuncture, take the energy from one area where it's excessive and bring it to another area where it's deficient. The body's balanced up, the symptoms are gone. But from the morphogenetic field of the individual, which is the reflection of thought, if you don't change the outer, you may change the outer for a temporary period of time, but if you don't change the inner essence or the thinking of the person or their consciousness, which you cannot change for them, they can only change for themselves, then all of the conditions will return upon the person again, because they haven't changed their thinking. The same thing is true with any other type of activity. I remember one of the psychic healers from the Philippines. I said, what's the one thing that bothers you most about the work you're in? He said that within a year's time, even though I've taken this cancer out or taken that cancer out, after a year's time, everything's back where it was. Everything returns because you haven't changed the consciousness. And you have to understand that consciousness determines the morphogenetic field, which determines the very structure of matter. In other words, I'm going to repeat that. The thought pattern that we hold in our mind determines the energy field around our body, which we call the morphogenic or morphogenetic field. that determines the very structure of matter itself. So if you change the morphogenetic field by energy medicine, sure, you can change the physical body, and the symptoms are gone. But you haven't changed the consciousness. Consciousness is still there, it hasn't changed. The morphogenetic field comes back to what it was originally, and the body comes back to what it was originally. Even though you use all of the outer experiences where you're healing from the outside in. Bottom line, many people want to heal from the outside in, but they don't want to take the time to change the consciousness. They want the outer effect where the symptoms are gone now. Okay, this is where body electronics come in. A lot of people want to punch this button and punch that button and punch that button and get people well. But they don't know beans about how to help the person recognize that they have to have a consciousness change. That's what we're going to be getting into here. This is such an important aspect. How many understand what I'm saying? Am I getting through here? Very, very important is consciousness change. But yet most of the techniques of healing are trying to heal from the outside in and not heal from the inside out. Now, Doug mentioned, if you remember, this one gentleman, that the Harrington rods in her spine were completely dissolved. He was there as a witness. But he was doing it by controlling vibrational factors, which is a very simple little parlor trick. But he was able to increase the vibration rate of the Harrington rods, and the Harrington rods disappeared, and he had full flexibility of his body. He already had the regeneration of the vertebrae that had been totally destroyed with the discs back and the vertebrae back. Everything was back to normal. But what did he not do? He didn't develop the change of consciousness. So the moment, because he wanted to prove to everybody that he could do this and wanted everybody to know it and was going to go back and prove to everybody how wrong they were, his whole motivation was wrong. And therefore, the moment that he had the least little bit of fear, right back came the Harrington rods. Then the Harrington rods would go away again, and then they come back again. They'd go away again and come back again, until I don't think he ever fully realized that there was another way of healing than the healing from the outside in. I don't think he ever did. And that's why he never was able to progress in this work, because he wanted to have the power himself to heal his own body. What we're looking for now is we're not looking for some witch to go out here and cause an incantation and bring about a healing through the astral realm or the black mass and so on. How are you aware that you can have the black mass and you can have the appearance just as solid as Anita is of the spirits from the astral realm? Are you aware of that? Solid, real people from the dark realms? Are you aware of that? You better be, because they're real. Sir, you understand this. Have you made a study of these things? I've had 3 times I wanted you to come up here and talk. Would you come up here and share your ignorance with the rest of us? Please, Peter.
I first heard about this when a friend of mine split up with his wife, and she went out with a guy who then set up a little... Oh, sorry. He then set up a room in my friend's old house to practice this stuff, and then started getting the children, his children, involved in it. And the implications of this was just, pretty bad. And we also found out that he was doing this for the Australian government, as you... Say that again. We also found out that he was working for the Australian government doing this, and that's how we became involved in it and found out about it.
Excuse me, sir, Are you aware that there's a division in the Australian government, and some will have nothing to do with it, and some of them are deeply involved? Okay.
Yes, I am aware of that.
Pardon?
I am aware of that, yes.
Are you aware of the deepness of this in Canberra?
Not really. We just know that this particular guy was actually working for the Australian government doing this kind of work.
But also who are involved in the same
Yes.
situation?
Yes.
Yeah, we know that to be true.
Mm.
But there is a deep division
Yeah, I believe
among
so,
the
yeah.
politicians. Some of
Yes.
them are just as good as gold.
Mm, absolutely.
And
Good
some of
bad
them,
in everything.
and others are having their lives threatened if they do anything to take action against this movement. Okay. And some of them are killed when they do. Yes, sir. Be fine.
I think that it's very mischievous to be making these sorts of allegations without offering any sort of proof. I don't know that this sort of stuff has any relevance as far as I'm concerned, and I'm trying to keep my mind open to my learning about body electronics. That's what I came here for. These vignettes about the Queen and opium money and all the rest of the stuff may well be true, but I think it's mischievous to be making these generalizations without offering some sort of proof. You've got people here, I don't know, maybe 60 or 70 people that may not have been aware of any of this stuff, that are going to go away with their opinions affected by your opinion. And if it's about body electronics, I think that's great, because that's what I came for. But about the other stuff, it's got dubious qualities.
Sir, you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. I should have all the proof here before me and present that to you in an organized manner. But you're absolutely correct. Unfortunately, I don't have that here to present to you now. I do know where the proof is, and I can gather that for you. Now, that I will probably do in about 3 or 4 months. It'll take me to get it together, because I don't have access to it here. Okay, but you're absolutely correct in what you're saying. I should never present something to you unless I can present the facts as they are. So please be patient with me on this, and just put it on the shelf and let it go. Because we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, do we? Okay, but you're absolutely correct. Point well taken. I should come with complete preparation before I present these things to you. But on the other hand, when you get on the table with an individual and you're holding points on that person, and they come out with everything that what I have told you, and I have had this happen, we've had this happen many times. When this happens, you have to be prepared as to not reject this individual, because this is what the danger is we sometimes are completely down on what we're not up on individually. This puts us into a bind, because a person starts talking about these things and we say, oh no, impossible, can't be. Guess, how do I know this? I've done it. I've scoffed at things that I'm very sorry I scoffed at earlier in my life, because I said that cannot possibly be, until you find out later on that by working with people of all shapes and sizes, you find out that everything was just like I said it. And this makes it kind of difficult, because you'll be doing the same thing. You'll be working with people that have problems. And when you open up the memories, clearly, that have been suppressed through trauma, through beatings, through brutal beatings in some cases, through other types of things. And when these things come out and they're verified by other people in the family, then you realize you've got a hornet's nest there that you don't know quite what to do with. And out of my concern for you, if you're going to get involved in body electronics, please try to keep an open mind and prove all things and hold fast that which is good. But don't swallow something like with a pill, like a pill. Many people just swallow something down and they don't even question it. Okay. There's a lot of dangerous things out there, and I want you to be aware of them, and I don't know how else to make you aware of them than to preparing you for things that may occur while the person's on the table. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I was just going to say that if you look at history, and you look at what's accepted as real in the present and real in the past, most of us accept things because we read it in a textbook, or we saw it on the news, or we read it in the newspaper. And so the reality is most of what most of us think is true, or most of what most of us think are the facts of the matter, we're really not in a position to judge because we haven't been there, we haven't seen it, we haven't, or we haven't at the very least talked to somebody that's actually been there, done that. I mean, actually seen it. So for example, I see Peter come up here and talk about something, and he can speak of that from his own experience. I mean, he can say he did see this man doing these, or he does know this man did these things, he does know this man worked for the government. I mean, in historical material, or in historical terms, that's what you call primary source material. And that's always far more valid than any nonsense you read in a textbook. Because what you find in textbooks are the same falsehoods just repeated down through many, many generations. So I pay credence to the experiences that each of us can share individually, and to me that'll be far more significant. You get into a lot of this, and I believe me, I'm as big a conspiracy buff as there is. So I mean, I keep my ears open to all sorts of things. But I'm always far more interested in hearing somebody like Peter come up and say something that they actually have experienced for themselves, than just getting somebody up who can spit back a bunch of stuff that they read somewhere that somebody else was spitting back from having read it somewhere else. And to me, a lot of that material, when you really examine it over the years, tends to be a little bit dubious. I mean, over in the States, for example, you get all sorts of, theories about the Kennedy assassination. And a lot of it's true, a lot of it's utter nonsense. There's all sorts of different spins on things. And if you really want to find the facts out about something, you got to go back to eyewitness accounts. I mean, people that really are in a position to know what went on. And what John's suggesting here is that in doing body electronics, if any of you are involved in body electronics for any length of time, and you start to be around a lot of point holding, you're going to eventually find yourself in the position where the person on the table is going to be apparently going through an experience that is going to just absolutely shock and stun you, because the person's going to be experiencing something that you don't even believe is reality. So the point I'm making is that people remember things. I mean, John's made the point, for example, like, I'll give an example that I've personally witnessed. A woman from Minnesota, in a visualization and consciousness course, re-experienced having had electric shock therapy when she was 4 years old. She had absolutely no recollection of ever having had that. I mean, no memory, nothing, didn't even occur to her that, such a thing could have happened. Well, all of a sudden, she's right back in the middle of it. She's experiencing getting so-called electroshock therapy when she was about 4, and she's able to go back home after this, and she's able to verify from the records and from family members who are still alive that this was real, that it very much did happen. And I've seen, just over the course of the time I've been doing body electronics, I've seen hundreds and hundreds of situations where people have recalled abuse and rape and all sorts of events which they've then been able to actually verify really did happen. And yet up until the time when they re-experienced it on the table, they had absolutely no recollection of that event happening. Now, events like electric shock therapy and rapes and child abuse, these are events that all of us understand really do happen in real life, right? I mean, I don't think it's a mystery to anybody here that these things, horrid as they sound, they are real, they do happen. Well, what are you going to do when you see somebody on the point holding table and all of a sudden they start re-experiencing being abducted by extraterrestrials? And to them, it's every bit as real as any other memory they've gone through. A lot of people see things like that and they will immediately scoff. They think, oh, that's just a bunch of nonsense, just a lot of hooey, a lot of just fabrication. I can tell you that from my experience in body electronics, the people that go back through these types of things in the table, you'll find a remarkable consistency in the way they describe the stories. You'll find this true even when you have people that have never even considered the concept themselves, never been around anybody else who was talking about it. In other words, there's nothing that they're basing it on. And one of the things that I've found is that oftentimes the people that ultimately end up having the memories and are the most shocked by it are the ones who prior to that were the most skeptical themselves. I mean, the ones that were absolutely convinced that there was no reality whatsoever to a lot of these things. So as John is saying here, and I mean, I could go on and on with some of the things that I've seen people go back through, but the point I'm making is if you do any amount of body electronics, which is, as this gentleman has very well expressed, it is what we're here to learn to do, this is part of body electronics because this is the exact same kind of stuff that you may well find yourself facing someday, whether it's you re-experiencing it or whether it's the person that you're trying to facilitate re-experiencing it. And I would encourage you to do exactly what John said here. Don't swallow it all like a pill, I mean, on the one hand. In other words, don't take our word for it. Don't believe it's true just because we tell you or somebody else tells you. You know, don't blindly accept anything just because somebody who appears to maybe know something about something tells you it might be true. Some noisy American. But on the other extreme, right? Don't discount it. In other words, don't just because it doesn't fit into your current belief systems. Is there anybody? Let me put it to you all this way. I think if any of us are honest about our own level of understanding, I think we'd be forced to conclude that there's many, many, many times as much that we don't know as that we actually do know. Would you all agree with that? There's many, many, many more things that we don't have the faintest idea about than there are that we have some dim understanding of. So I don't think it's a major leap of faith for any of us here to decide that there's going to be things out there that we know nothing about and will seem completely preposterous to us right now, and yet we may eventually find ourselves accepting them from our own experience. So what I'm encouraging you to do, as John has done here, is don't swallow it like a pill, but don't be so quick to reject it. Keep an open mind, put it on the shelf, because you may find there'll be some awfully bizarre things that you'll eventually come to accept, but accept them on good, hard evidence, as this gentleman has quite deservedly requested. And I'm very glad that he got up and said what he said. But I'm just saying, if you don't have an open mind to begin with, no matter how much evidence is presented, you still won't believe it. I mean, the truth could bite you on the nose and you still wouldn't accept it. So I'm encouraging you to be diligent in seeking the truth, but open-minded enough to accept it when you trip over it. Thank you. There's a good quote on that. Winston Churchill, I think, said this. He said, most people will stumble upon this is a bit of a paraphrase, but it's pretty close. Most people will stumble upon the truth from time to time and pick themselves up and continue on as if nothing had happened. And I think that's the boat that a lot of us have found ourselves in.
In working in body electronics and coming across somebody that perhaps believes that they've been abducted by an extraterrestrial or that are perhaps demonic by nature, are you suggesting that as a practitioner of body electronics that you should be willing to live through that experience yourself?
You mean that if, like in other words, there's somebody else on the table going through it, should I be willing to go through the experience, or
yes,
I'm not sure if I'm understanding the question.
As the practitioner, as the person applying pressure to the points.
Well, let me put it to you this way. If I happened to be facilitating you or holding points on you, and you started to have a memory come up that seemed to be pretty bizarre, let's say it's extraterrestrials, or let's say it's any of these types of things that pop buttons, the position I would take in my own mind is really quite simple. I wouldn't become overly concerned one way or another at first with whether the event was absolutely real or not. In other words, I would suspend judgment Because I think there are times maybe when people do go through things that are maybe are not reality and certainty. But I would try to keep a very open mind about it. And what I would do in facilitating you through an event like that would be exactly what I would do if you were going back through having stubbed your toe. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, I would simply encourage you to look for the memory. I'd encourage you to look for the emotions. I'd encourage you to look for the word patterns. Hold your body still on the table. Breathe deep and regular, and on and on. I wouldn't treat it as any more or any less significant than anything else that you might have come up.
But you're not suggesting that you, as the person holding the points, should be endeavouring to live through the experience? Other than as I mean, there are two experiences here. There is an experience of you as the practitioner holding points, hearing what is happening for the person on the table, and there's the experience of the person on the table reliving their memory or their illusion of whatever it is that may have caused their pain.
First of all, I don't now, nor have I ever really viewed myself as a practitioner of body electronics. I'm a teacher of body electronics. I try, as John has taught, to teach people correct principles and let them govern themselves. So if I happen to be holding points on you, from my perspective, the most important person there at the time of the session is not it's the person on the table. It's not the point holders, it's not the facilitator. So I'm not looking at it from the perspective of like, oh, I'm the practitioner and I have to make something happen and I have to be responsible for this person. I'm looking at it from the perspective of, well, I'm here, this person's going through some things here, and if there's something that I can do that will be of service to that person, then I'll do it. And if there isn't anything I can do other than sit there and love the person exactly as they are, then that's what I'll do. So I'm not going into it with a practitioner mindset. So that's probably one of the reasons I'm having a little difficulty with your question. But as far as, like, say, whether or not I experience what the person on the table is going through, on the one hand, it's quite possible for the person on the table to go through a memory and really get it, get it 100%, and yet for the other people in the room to have little or no awareness of what that person's going through. So it's not absolutely necessary in any case, whether it's with UFOs or a stubbed toe, it's not absolutely necessary as a point holder that I know every little detail of what the person's going through. Do you see what I'm saying? That's not intrinsic to the success of the session. Sometimes it helps a lot, and sometimes, as John has suggested, you can help that person by receiving and recreating some of the stuff as it's coming back through. But it's not an absolute necessity, regardless of what the experience is.
Okay, so that...
Something's not on. Sounds different here on the speaker. We on now? Okay. Sakara, come forward, please. And let's have this whole thing out and over with here for a few minutes. Corey, is Corey back there? Corey, come up here, sir. Is Linda back there? Where's Linda? Okay. Helena, I need your input. Ruth, were you at Genazzano a year ago? Nope. Okay. Trudy, you come up here. You were there. And let's have this out. I'm going to unravel for you one of the strangest and most amazing things that I participated in. And we had about 100 people at Genazzano about a year ago. Is that correct? And I think they'll all tell basically the same story. This is direct evidence. We had people with the liver scared right out of them, living out in the camping area. And they came in as fast as they could out of the camping area into some of the rooms that were partially vacant and stayed in the complex, which was quite isolated, where we could have our body electronics work so that there be the suppressed things wouldn't scare the liver out of people, you know, in a very close neighborhood. Because point holding should not be in a close neighborhood where people can hear you when you go through a trauma blocks and blocks away. We don't want that. We want to be in a place where it's safe to unfold, or what we call unravel. But this I didn't expect. This I knew nothing about until we had, can we call it an invasion of aliens? Would that be appropriate? Now, strangely enough, one of our people there knew these particular aliens that came in and landed on this Karen. Remember Karen? And she went out in the presence of other people and talked with these aliens coming off of a spaceship back out where about maybe 30 or 40 people were camped. You were out there on the camping spot. Lights were around. Everybody saw lights and one thing and another. Is this correct? Okay. Now, we never have discussed this in this manner before, but I want you to be aware. Doug talks about abductions. How many people were at the seminar that have distinct memories of being abducted?
Quite a few.
Quite a few. People were gathered all over the area to come to that one seminar to share some common experiences. But this abduction is a real thing. Now, I wouldn't believe it until people are being pulled out on a tractor beam type thing, as they describe it, through a wall and fighting tooth and nail, screaming going on, things carrying on while people are fighting for their very existence, refusing to go and demanding that this not happen because that's contrary to their free agency, and being able not to be pulled out through a wall and abducted in this particular case, but having been abducted before because they didn't know any better and they're too scared to object. And so silence means consent. But I would say that I don't know how many people had the same experience the same night of being pulled out through the wall of their room with a beam of light going in and coming back out. I used to scoff at this, sir. No way could that ever happen. Pardon?
At the moment. I'm not suggesting for a moment that these things are untrue or don't happen.
I did. I wouldn't even believe it.
I have an open mind.
Okay, I didn't.
My interest is more in the application and the relationship between people that are patients.
Yes.
Or appliers of the techniques.
But in this case, this did happen with 100 people there, and each one having different experiences with the same group of aliens that came that night. Now, unfortunately, I slept through the whole thing. I saw nothing, I heard nothing. Nothing. Yet other people were directly and specifically involved in this. Now, Corey, what was your point of view? You were up there at the time. From your perspective, what did you see? Now, everyone's going to have a different perspective.
My point of view is similar to yours, John. I slept pretty much through the whole thing. The only thing I noticed is that the next day, like, I'd have a very restless night, which is very unusual for me, and the next day I'd be there in class and everyone would tell us what's been going on in the nighttime, and I'd go, well, maybe that can explain why I didn't sleep. That's all I can say. I just didn't sleep very well. On the nights that the next day when it was spoken about, I went, ah.
Now, Sakara has us all on tape. What is your observation, Sakara?
Well, my experience was like I had a lot of restless nights too when that was happening. But on one night in particular, I remember waking up about 3 a.m. to this really bright light outside the room. And that was in a different area than the camping area. And then the next morning, and I was quite frightened. And the next morning, one of the girls who was getting pulled out of the wall, she shared her experience, and that was happening in the area where we were staying, in those rooms.
Was that out in the camping area?
No.
One of the rooms.
One of the rooms.
And the gal with her was terribly alarmed also because she observed the whole thing.
Yeah.
And you can't take that away from a person. Prima facie evidence.
Wouldn't want to.
That's my feeling there, right there. I just said, I'm glad I slept through all that.
And this year also had some restless nights, and then there was discussion of things happening in the camping area. And towards the end, the last week, I was awake all night and I didn't know why. There was a strange low hub of a vibration noise outside all night.
Buzzing.
And there's these birds.
I thought that was a pump.
The curlew birds were going crazy. They were screaming all night long.
The curlews.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, they make a good bit of noise anyways, but there was one night when it was just
this
really...
was extreme.
10 or 20 times as much as normal, just really quite out there. I remember that towards the end. Yeah.
Well, I guess the noise was one of the things that I heard. I thought it was the kitchen because I was sleeping near the kitchen, but it was this buzzing, all night long. And I guess I took it like I was getting into my terror because I had to get up and go to the toilet. So I had to get through my fear just to go out and say, I'm okay, I can get to the toilet. But the other thing is, I guess just to explain a little bit, I've lived with a skeptic for many years, my husband, and I think I've resisted his skepticism to the extent I've become a bit of a skeptic. And there was one girl in the class that had said she'd been abducted. And apparently when you've been abducted, they put a point on your body somewhere that shows that it's like a little emblem that shows that you've been abducted. And I thought, oh yeah, sure. So I went up to her and I said, could I please see it? Like I want to put my hand in the wound type thing. And she actually showed me the point that showed there was a scar. So then I thought, oh, maybe there was. And it was a very strange looking little, like a brand almost. So that sort of helped me believe a little bit more.
Did you see any bright lights or anything?
No, I didn't see any bright lights.
You just saw the buzzing.
Sorry?
The buzzing.
The buzzing. I heard it again this year as well when we were up there, and the curlews again this year. So it was the same. It only happened, not every night. So it was something unusual. And it was like I could hear it coming from a distance and came up, and then it would go on to another area. That's how it sounded.
Yep.
Yeah.
Obviously, the experiences are very similar. The first instructor seminar at Genesano, I woke up several nights. The first night it was the occasion that we were discussing that people were being pulled out of the walls. I woke up at 3 o'clock. It's very unusual for me to wake up, and usually I just go straight back to sleep. But I woke up also with the light outside the series of rooms that we have up there, and the curlews for about an hour after that went just absolutely ridiculously crazy, and I could hear the humming as well, but that first night I thought, oh well, that's the pump. I've never woken up, so it's the pump pumping the water. We all have these rational explanations as to why things happen. But after the discussion, obviously it generated fear in everybody, and so we were much more sensitive to the things that happened. And I must say that although I didn't see the light again, I did hear the humming several times, and then this year, very clearly, there was one particular night where the curlews went absolutely wild, and the humming came up past the rooms and went away, and I wasn't going to check what was going on at all. I was quite happy to just let it be. And I violet lighted the room, and that was it.
Okay. How about yourself, Trudy?
I was like you. I slept through the whole thing. Not one bit. Although I heard the humming, but I trust what people were saying in their stories the next day, because I remember David Parker, who wasn't anywhere near the Genesano Centre. He was staying at a motel down in town at Yungaburra, and he also woke up and his wall had all of a sudden disappeared and this white light was coming in to consume him. So And David, trust me, David Parker is not a fanciful man. He's pretty straight. So I trust what they say. Not that I was fearful or anything, but I was aware of the constant buzzing, or the hum, or whatever you want to call it.
Okay, Doug, you were there.
It's been my experience over many years that at lots of seminars, all sorts of things like this happen, and I inevitably sleep right through it. I've tended to sleep through earthquakes, too. Small ones, you know, around a 4 or so.
Thank you, sir. But I think we'll all concur that there were people who spoke to the aliens, and there were a number of people who saw the aliens walking around, some around their tents, and they open the flap on their tents. They see this strange being outside of their tent. They very quickly close the tent again and go and cower back into a corner. But this is the sort of thing that happened to a number of people that are not here today, obviously. But I think that I can report that collectively there were...
They're not here from their own choice, not because they were taken. I want all of you too to realise that we do have a nice time up there, and the camping facilities are perfectly safe.
Now,
he meant they're not in Brisbane as opposed to, you know.
But case in point, you find those people who didn't believe one whit in this sort of thing going on. It was a very great shock when they realized from their own experience that this was going on. Now, this is a thing that we have to deal with. I'm presenting this to you, that this did indeed happen, with the various aspects of the same story that different people had. But I know that one group was out here in this caravan, and they not only saw, they heard, they saw the bright lights, they heard the humming, they saw these people, and they just got scared spitless and ran back into the complex to find a place to sleep that night. They weren't going to stay out there. Yet other people were very happy. Hi, saw you last year, good to have you back, and you know, and went out and right to the spaceship, right there, which people saw, and conversed with these people. Now, case in point, how do you handle this if you run across a person who has been abducted? How do you handle this if you have points being held and all of a sudden they're screaming away, don't take me, don't take me, don't take me? How are you going to deal with a person that has been impregnated 4 different times, and then after the 3rd month the impregnation was taken away by this bright light entering into the abdomen? Both Anita and I know this one lady, very lovely lady. On her 5th impregnation, she wanted that child. And she would not give up that child on the 5th impregnation. She was killed. She was killed, and she was on the phone to a very dear friend of hers while she was saying, don't take my child, don't take my child. And when he got over to the house there, she was dead. Now, these are the things that I'm concerned about. So we talk about them so that when they do happen in our space, we may not know what to do, but we're not going to reject and say, this is not so. Because we become kind of, by experience that's enforced upon us, we become believers that this may be so. But how do we handle that when they're on the table? With great care, great dignity, and great difficulty. And we'll get into some of the aspects of that. But I'm just saying that for every situation that we have, there are witnesses to it. And we can bring these things up to people and say, oh, that's silly, that's ridiculous, that's nonsense. Until you're in the middle of it, and you say, now what do I do? But you have to take a position, as I see it, that they have no right to take away your agency on this particular planet. No alien has a right to come down here and defy you and take away your freedom. They're not able to do that. So you have to put up a little fight type of thing and say, no, and then they have to let go. But if you don't say no, then as the people who had been abducted before, sharing their stories with everybody at Genazzano, they didn't fight. They just, what do I do? And they allowed themselves to be taken, experimented with, operated on, impregnated, one thing or another. They've gone through these experiences. And therefore this abduction becomes a very real thing in this day and age. And what are we down here? Are we just being raised as a fodder for the aliens, as some people believe, or are there aliens that are good? Are there aliens that are shall we say, constructive? And some people say, with their experiences, say there's 5 different types of aliens. There may be more. I don't know. Anything else you want to say? Did I misrepresent anything to your knowledge? Just case in point. Now, if we could give proof, tangible proof for different things that I have said, which I don't have the proof here, for which I apologize, and which you're absolutely right for saying that I'm being irresponsible and mischievous in the matter. I agree with that.
John?
Yes, sir.
I'm not looking for proof. I was just making the statement that I thought that it was mischievous to make generalities like that.
Absolutely correct. I agree with you.
And I was endeavoring to bring the focus back to the point holding table.
That's right. But these are things that we have to cope with that are unexpected and inexplainable from our point of view because we don't have enough knowledge. And frankly, I feel totally inadequate when these things occur because I don't know how to handle it. I feel powerless. I feel unable to give people guidance and direction because I have no means of self-defense. Maybe I don't need to have self-defense. I have no awareness as to how to counteract this or to correct a condition that's been imposed upon some of these people who've gone through absolute hell. This is just, yes.
John, just to comment, it is very relevant to the point holding table because as we're working with people on the table, these are the sort of things that come up. And it's very important to know some of the things that do come up and how to handle them. So it is actually very relevant to point holding. It mightn't seem it.
Yes, that was the reason I asked about the relationship between the person on the table and the person holding the points.
It's totally unexpected as what will happen. Totally unexpected. Totally unexpected. And what you think is going to happen never happens. And what you are not aware of does happen. And it can be very traumatic. The only thing you can do is to assume a position of consistency and hold the points until the thing is complete. Now, that's basically it. Now, I'm going to have somebody be very upset back here if we don't take a break for tea. Just a little something. Is it all prepared? And then we'll have dinner a little bit later, okay? Take a short break.